Hey, there's been a lot of talk online lately about the harmful effects of AI to our planet at a time when we do not need more warming. Greenpeace released a report about the environmental impacts of artificial intelligence, and its lead author, Jens Gröger, is here with us today to talk about it. Jens Gröger is a senior researcher at the Öko-Institut in Germany on sustainable information and communication technology. He develops methods for assessing the energy efficiency of computers, software, telecommunication networks, and data centers. Hi, Jens. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I finally finished reading your 55-page PDF, and it's funny, at the top of the page in Adobe Premiere, it says, "This is a long article. Would you like AI to summarize it?" And I didn't. And I feel like I learned a lot more by reading the whole thing myself, but it would have made it way faster. And I thought that maybe kids are not learning as much by using AI to do their homework. Apparently, a small recent non-peer reviewed MIT study reported that excessive reliance on AI-driven solutions may contribute to cognitive atrophy or shrinking of critical thinking abilities.
Yeah, I definitely think this will shrink the ability to think using too much AI. And anyway, why should we think if AI is more clever, more intelligent than we actually are? But I mean, that can't be the solution. So maybe it's better really not to consume too much AI and to think by yourself.
Yeah. Can AI help us, and can we use it responsibly, or is it just evil?
I guess probably it could be used actually useful. There are several use cases for it, but actually I'm doubting that it will be useful because it makes much more sense to use it this way that you earn as much money as you can with it. And that's mainly not the useful things. One problem is that actually the electricity consumption by data centers is rising steadily, and the electricity consumption will double in the next 5 years. And right now, data centers approximately need as much energy as Brazil needs, which is the sixth largest electricity consumer worldwide. But in future, in 5 years, it will already be as much as India consumes, which is the third biggest electricity consumer. But also the greenhouse gas emissions that these data centers produce 3 times as big as today. And also water consumption will go up by the factor of 6. So all this is very concerning, and all this consumption that these data centers will produce, well, they have to be saved somehow before artificial intelligence will have a positive impact at all.
Yeah. It feels like too many people just use AI for stupid stuff like stealing work, not like making life better. I'm in a group chat for EcoSoc though, and people on there are inviting youth to sign up for their programs to use AI to amplify the voices of people in the global south. So there are people really trying to do good things with it, but I just keep thinking about all the water and carbon that it's using. AI's projected water usage could hit 6.6 billion cubic meters by 2027. That's a lot of water, and I feel people think things will get better and that advances in technology will make it okay to use AI in the future. Is that true that we really don't need to worry about this?
Yeah, there, I guess, is a lot of wishful thinking behind this narrative. For example, Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, claims that maybe AI can find out how we can cure cancer. Well, maybe, but maybe not. And what is quite certain is that AI can help us to improve technical systems, for example, to improve machines, traffic flows, or maybe make more accurate weather forecasts. However, AI will also help us to really exploit new oil fields, deep sea mining, or maybe even make military drones fully automatically doing their war, or replacing jobs in companies because AI is much smarter than the employees there. So I guess there is also quite a big downside of AI usage.
Yeah. Data centers say that they're trying to be carbon neutral, but they're trying to use nuclear as their carbon neutral energy instead of renewable sources like wind and solar, which are cheaper and safer.
Yeah, it's quite funny that the data center operators actually promised to become climate neutral by 2030. But because of the big AI boom, they suddenly realized they won't succeed doing it just using it renewables. And this is why they came up with this nuclear stuff, which is quite a dinosaur technology. Everybody knows that it's quite dangerous to run these nuclear power plants. Microsoft, for example, helped to repair a 50-year-old nuclear power plant in Harrisburg, and they still want to run it 20 more years. And everybody knows that it's quite a dangerous thing, and especially the nuclear waste that is being produced, there is no actual way to get rid of it. So actually, that's not a good idea. But in fact, fortunately, they don't use nuclear power this often because it's much too expensive. It's much cheaper to use other electricity generators. And especially, it seems to be quite cheap to build a new fossil gas fueled plants directly next to the data centers. And this is what's happening right now, that they build up a data center, and next to the data center, they built several gas powered plants. So that climate neutrality by 2030 seems more to be a bad joke than really funny.
Yeah. Online people are talking about how great AI is and how many people it is going to turn into billionaires. But I think the world needs a wealth tax and way less people hoarding more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes.
Yeah, I think wealthy doesn't really multiply. It just is being redistributed. Few people get richer and richer. And this American dream that everybody could get from the washer to the billionaire is really more or less a sleeping pill to get people quiet. And that would probably never happen. There is a new Oxfam report just came out in January, which says 3,000 billionaires of this world are as wealthy as the poorer half of the world, meaning that 4.1 billion people have as much money as 3,000 billionaires. And this shows that through this technology, and actually the richest of these 3,000 people is Elon Musk. The richer will probably get much richer by this technology, but there won't be much people really getting profit from it.
Yeah. A report came out at the end of 2024 that said 80% of almost 400 scientists think that we are on track to blow past 1.5 degrees Celsius and end up at least 2.5 degrees of warming. That will be catastrophic for our planet and kind of makes you want to give up for a moment. But then you remember that every fraction of a degree will save millions of children's lives and that we can't give up. We have to decrease emissions, but they're still increasing. I feel like AI came at the worst possible time. Are you worried about the future, and do you think we could do this?
Yes, of course, I'm worried, and I think everybody should be worried about that and really make a strong effort to change this future. And as you said, every tenth of degree counts. But on the other hand, I know that humanity survived many crises and that a human being needs much less than we actually consume, at least in the Western world right now. So I guess the future will change. There will be much more environmental hazards, and the soils will get less futile, and also the land is getting probably less, but still we can survive also with less.
Yeah. The reason data centers use so much water and energy is that they have to keep the chips to run them cool. I feel like our priorities are all out of whack. 500,000 people die annually from heat-related deaths, but we can afford to cool all these data centers?
Imagine a data center as a big factory filled with computers. They're so-called servers, and they have sizes of several soccer fields. And all this information technology in there, all these computers, they actually do the calculating and the storage and the transfer of data, but all they also produce heat. And this heat has to be transported off these big factories. And there are several technologies to do so. And the one method, which might be the easiest, is just to blow cool wind through the data center. You could do that at smaller plants, but also in colder climates. It's called free cooling. But then the other thing is just to cool it down with electricity. This is what happens at your refrigerator, where you put electricity in and it gets cold in there. So this is also a way. And the third way is actually to evaporate water in the data centers. And this is where the water losses happen if you evaporate water at cooling towers. And it really depends on either if there is enough water or what is the climate around, how to cool it.
AI used 175 billion liters in 2023, and some people think that it can just return to the water cycle, but it doesn't. Freshwater, what we need to drink and water our crops, is only 3% of the world's water, and over two-thirds of that is tucked away in frozen glaciers and unavailable to use. 1.1 billion people worldwide lack access to water. Inadequate sanitation is also a problem for 2.4 billion people. 2 million people, mostly kids, die each year from diarrhea from poor sanitation. A United Nations environmental report found that nearly two-thirds of our world's population experiences severe water shortages for at least 1 month a year, and by 2030, this gap is predicted to become much worse, with almost half the world's population facing severe water stress. To avoid this, the water must be decoupled from economic growth by developing policies and technologies to reduce or maintain consumption without compromising performance. How do we get data centers to move away from water use when it's so cheap and easy?
I would say the only language that these tech companies understand is money. And so, actually, where water is scarce, water consumption must be so expensive that it doesn't make sense to use it anymore. Unfortunately, the other thing happens right now. Data centers are literally being lured into regions with low infrastructure, and they don't have to pay any taxes, and they get access to the groundwater, and they get it really cheap. And that's maybe probably because the local authorities don't know how to negotiate with these big companies. They have quite good lobby and nice people coming there and saying it will be great. There will be new jobs in your region, but actually there won't be a lot of jobs, maybe some jobs for the security of the guard of that data center. And so these regions or these mayors from local communities, they really have to be supported to make a good negotiations and not to allow them to really tap that groundwater there.
Yeah. One thing that surprised me about your paper was the problem of the e-waste created. Gold and cobalt are both used to create AI chips, and both are mined by estimated millions of children globally. These mines are also terrible for biodiversity, causing irreversible harm to ecosystems. Why don't these big companies making billions just invest in recycling e-waste?
I actually don't understand this myself.
Because we will eventually run out of the materials we need if we just keep burning everything up once it's used. What was the craziest thing you discovered during the study?
The only explanation why they don't really recycle this electronic waste is that they have a very short-term view into the future. They think in 2 or 3 years, and the investment they have today, they will have to return after this really short period. Maybe they should really ask whatever ChatGPT, because the answers you get there are more looking into future as the companies themselves. But you're asking for the craziest thing, and this craziest thing was exactly this return of investment. We made an overview how much turnover these companies have and how much of this money they really keep. And what we found, for example, at Microsoft, that of every dollar they get in, they really keep 36 cents. Meaning, if you really compare it to the grocery store or to a craftsman, they usually have this benefit of 5 to 10%, but these tech companies have 36%. And this is what they really expect to get. And then you don't have to wonder why they're so flooding in money, because they earn really so much.
It may feel kind of like asking kids to recycle when 1,000 private jets fly to the Super Bowl, but is there anything we kids can do to make things better?
Yeah. Well, actually, it always makes sense if you have a certain kind of leverage effect. So if you're doing something and then 1,000 other people will follow you, that makes totally sense. And maybe the first step is just to talk to your parents and say that they should, in their jobs and in their neighborhood, make things better. But the second step might be that you and your education could go into the direction that you will have afterwards a job to make the world better. What I would suggest is not to spend your money and not your time for a really harmful company. So don't work at these mentioned companies. Just make your own business and try to make things better.
Yeah. Whenever I'm doing an interview or talking with someone, I always mention that kids are the most impactful voices and they can convince adults to work towards a greener earth when anybody else can't.
Yeah, actually, this is what I'm experiencing if I talk to whatever in ministries or in data center companies. They always talk about their children and what they told them, and that they feel, or actually they are responsible for the future of their kids. And this actually helps. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of feels like AI is the last thing our planet needs right now. I liked how you said AI profits must not be privatized while environmental consequences are socialized. You mentioned lots of solutions like certification of environmentally friendly AI. Which is your favorite fix for the mess we are in, and what do we need to do to make AI green?
Yeah, actually, we worked out several steps to reach that goal, and you have to make sure that the AI you're using is doing good and not, for example, finding new oil fields, but reducing the energy consumption of a technical system. The second step might be just to ask yourself if you really need AI for this task. If not, other cheaper or energy efficient solutions could do the same task. And then the third step is that you choose this kind of AI that really somehow tailored to the problem you have. So if you want to control a heating system, you don't really have to use ChatGPT for it. You could use a very small computer and use the very small AI model to really do it, and so on. But actually, the first thing you mentioned might be the most important, that AI should not be used or not only be used to maximize profits, but AI should especially be used to help the environment and the human beings to survive or to do things better.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking with me today, Jens. As a thank you for talking to us today, I'd like to make a donation to your favorite environmental charity. Who are they and what do they do?
Yeah, thank you. There is one NGO called Good Jobs First, and they actually give support to the local communities. If there is a data center being planned, they help them in negotiations and find out what might be the harm of these data centers and really help civil society against these big tech companies. So I would suggest Good Jobs First.
That's great. Click the link below to read Greenpeace's report or to make a donation to Good Jobs First. And remember, together we can save the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, Robert.